programme makers and fellow listeners, and thanks for keeping it all.
He hasn't since I talked to him anyway.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is the April 25th, 2016 meeting of the Moscow City Council Administrative Committee. On my right is Dan Karskalen, left John Weber, and we're here to approve some minutes, even though they're not on the agenda.
Well, I would move that we approve those minutes.
Also concur. All right, we'll consider them approved from the previous meeting. The first item on our agenda that's printed is a lease agreement between the City of Moscow and Craig Greenwalt, and Dwight Curtis is going to give us the details on that.
Good afternoon. If you'll recall, last fall we went through this process to lease out the cropland on the West Palouse River Drive property. I have the picture of that up on the board here, and basically 20 of the 28 acres there is really farmable. The other part gets flooded out a lot. But as we had negotiated the last time, and this was with Mr. Sherman Clyde, who passed away, and so at this time that property is not, was basically just been left unattended. So the adjacent farmer to the south of that has asked to go ahead and farm that. He had been in talks with Mr. Clyde for some years anyway, and we've talked to Mr. Clyde's son, Tim, who is also supportive of this, just because it's kind of a sensitive subject, you might say. But anyway, the agreement is exactly the same as we had it before. It is the 20 acres at $70 per acre. And that's per year. It would be paid prior to the 30th day of November of each year, and it's effective this year. And of course, we have termination clause in there. As long as it's by the 1st of December of any given year, either side could terminate the agreement. And with that, we'd like approval to go into agreement.
Mr. Reedner?
Dwight, now, Mr. Clyde, when he had the property, was doing some weed control throughout the area. That will continue under this contract?
Weed control on the south side of on the north side of the river will not continue.
Did Mr. Clyde do that, though?
He did do that.
Okay. And the terms, I noticed the terms of the agreement are the same, the length of the agreement. Okay. It would be I have no problem with the agreement as the council continues to. It was a special relationship with Mr. Clyde providing those other services as well. As Dwight indicated, that we have the ability on a year-to-year basis to determine whether we want to continue the relationship. So with that, I believe that we're okay. The
Parks and Rec will do the weed control on the cyclocross, or does Palouse Bicycling do that?
We will do that. As this would have worked out had Mr. Clyde been on board. In the past, he had cut that for hay, and as the hay is getting old, it's almost non-cuttable now. I mean, it's non-usable. He wasn't using it for hay. He was cutting it, and another fellow was baling it, and that guy no longer wishes to do that either. This Mr. Yeah, Greenwalt. Anyway, he does not have that kind of farm equipment anyway, and so what we'll keep a fire berm, or what do you want to call it, a fire break around the entire property. We're also watching the creek where the chemicals might need to be applied if needed for the weeds. Otherwise, it's not a whole lot to do there at this point.
Well, with the cyclocross course in there, it's like unfarmable anyway, isn't it? I mean, you couldn't possibly drive equipment around that.
Well,
or
the way it's designed is you don't have to drive around it; you just drive over it. It's just a path, except for where the obstacles are. Well, there's not a lot of that other than what's natural. So we
won't mow it at all.
Just the fire breaks and the path itself.
Okay. That should keep the noxious weeds down, huh?
Yes.
Okay. John?
I'm fine with this.
I am as well. I see I mean, basically, he's getting a free aid out of it as long as it doesn't get flooded, I guess, is because we're leasing him 20 and there's 28 down there, so that's at his own risk, basically, is what that amounts to. Yeah, I'm okay. Let's go ahead and forward it for approval.
Yeah, I think we should go ahead and put this on the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. Next item on our agenda is a construction agreement for the library exterior and for the restoration project across the street there, and Dave Schott's in charge of that one.
Got it. Get familiar with it.
Whenever you're ready, sir.
All right. Good afternoon, council members.
Good afternoon.
Well, thank you. I'm going to walk you through our construction agreement with Palouse Restoration, or Masonry Restoration, for the Moscow Library. We're going to talk a little bit about the project scope, the construction agreement and the budget, and our staff recommendation. The project scope. So this project is similar to the City Hall project. If you remember in 2015, the sandstone work had done outside for this building, similar to the library. With the sandstone, you can see a lot of the voids in here, cracking. The intent is to go through and get that cleaned up, repoint it, and get some good mortar in there. Replacement of bricks. I think he's looking at replacing about 350 bricks throughout the structure. You can see a couple instances of that here. Up in here, there's a larger crack. Also going to be looking at cleaning it, getting some of the carbon off. You can see some of the staining up off the roof. Be looking at some of the sandstone through here.
Is that a hole in the chimney?
It is. That's a great question. So we did have that vehicle accident with the library some months ago.
Well, it didn't hit the chimney.
That vehicle got some air. Apparently the brick is really hard to match, so they're piecing it out from the chimney.
Okay.
The idea is that chimney will be reduced, and then we'll reflute it and everything else. But that's where we're getting the brick for some of the replacements, the ones we can't repair.
Where you can, huh?
I thought that picture would get some attention.
Yeah.
Cannibalizing the library.
We are. So the budget for this project was $37,000. The construction agreement, if approved, would be $36,387.50. This is the same contractor that had done the work out here at City Hall, Palouse Masonry Restoration. This was formerly Affordable Quality Masonry Restoration. And as I mentioned, similar to the restoration project here at City Hall. Kind of the brass of it within the agreement is cut and replace 350 bricks, cut out and repoint approximately 670 square feet, patch and repair 50 square feet, apply a water repellent to the structure, 12,000 square feet, remove the localized carbon staining, and dismantle, clean, and prep brick from the chimney. And then some rental for man lift and scaffolding. So, staff's recommendation is to improve the agreement. It seems like he did really good work with City Hall, is my understanding. I think he'll do a good job over at the library. So, with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions from council members.
What's the time frame on working on this, Dave?
I think we've got substantial completion at the end of June. He'll probably get started on it next week if approved by council.
Sooner the better, I think.
Yeah, I know that this was, a big worry when we found a lot of extra damage in there than we initially thought. We thought it was going to be a really quick fix, but, this guy did a really good job on the City Hall here. I think that, if we can stick with him to do this, that's great.
Yeah, it's administration's recommendation for approval as well. You've noted the great work that he did last year. Remember, that almost didn't happen when there was some confusion about whether he was available to do the work. We had some other inquiries that were made. Frankly, it's something where there's not a lot of expertise in the area. So the work that he did at City Hall was well done for a reasonable price, and I have no reason to believe this wouldn't be the same.
I think this is another consent agenda item then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Recap there, Dave. Moving along to item number 3, fire station number 2 parking lot repairs and bid results in the contract award. Scott Bontrager in charge of that.
Good afternoon.
Good.
So this particular project, there's a portion of Fire Station 2's parking lot that is failing, starting to create unsafe, uneven surface out there. This project is basically proposing to fix that problem and also cure the drainage issues that are happening out there. That's part of the problem of why the asphalt's failing. So roughly 1,700 square yards of asphalt out there needs to be replaced. Put it out to 4 local contractors. We got 2 bids back. One from Motley at $69,357.50, and one from Herco for $78,384, of which the engineer's estimate on this was $81,547.50, which the asphalt prices we've been seeing this year are much lower than expected, which is a good thing for us. So our recommendation for this is to award the contract to Motley for $69,357.50, knowing that this is an itemized contract and that we're looking at potentially expanding the amount of asphalt that we fix out there.
Gary?
That was going to be my next comment. This was something that we'd anticipated in the preparation of the FY16 budget. We obtained authorization from the Rural Fire District as well as the volunteers to share 1/3 each in this project. They've taken the most deteriorated part of the parking lot, and that's what Scott's reporting on today. I'd like to propose that we amend the authorization for the project to, because of the favorable asphalt prices and the chance for us to get as much done as we can, that the council authorize expansion of the project within the project budget up to $120,000, including any project contingency or change orders. And then knowing that the city's part of the budget is $40,000, fire district's $40,000, and the volunteers is $40,000. It'll just allow us to get the most bang for our buck.
The other people chipping in on this, are they okay with that? They have that in their budget and they're willing to.
We'll make sure to
ramp it
make
up?
inquiries. That's within their budgets, is my understanding.
Yeah, as long as everybody else is on board for the amount, then I'd be okay with that. It's a good time to get something.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as Scott said, the asphalt prices come in significantly lower than the last few years, so it's not quite down to getting to do a lot, but you're doing a lot more than you used to be able to. So,
John?
What caused the difficulty with the surface that we have?
Say a good portion of it, not only age, but the sub-base below the drainage that we have out there is ponding underneath and is not allowed to drain away. So with this project, we'll be putting in an under drain system to remove a lot of that.
Okay.
So we got a bunch of melt freeze issues there breaking it up.
you know, and it's also the emergency helipad too, so you kind of want to have a
Right.
relatively smooth service for
And
that.
I'm sure roller hockey, right, for the volunteers. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I would suggest that we put this on a regular agenda since we're altering the amount, possibly, from the bid,
Okay.
to let full council have a look at the idea that we're going to expand it to the.
Certainly. And we'll make inquiry with our
Budgeted
partners to make sure that they're okay with that as well.
And we should have an answer for that by
Absolutely,
next
by
meeting.
next Monday.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Item number 4 on our agenda is the FEMA Fire Safety and Prevention Grant application, and Alyssa Anderson's going to take over on that. Looks like she has a crew of support.
Of course. So Joe has a little video of this piece of equipment in action that he's going to show us. While he's getting that ready, I'll go ahead and talk to you about the grant application. And I just want to say, too, Kirsten is working on this with me. It's one that we've submitted before, but we're changing it a little bit to beef it up and maybe make it a little more competitive. And so I'm very happy to have the opportunity to have some help with this while we're working on our other larger projects. So right now we're looking at, I think you saw this before, the fire extinguisher safety training equipment. And it does several different things, but I think the bottom line is it's a lot less expensive, and it's a lot safer to do training with this type of equipment than it is to have some other type of training where you actually have to start a fire, put it out, empty the fire extinguishers, and do all those different things. So it's a lot less expensive, it's safer, and you can do demos of different types of fires, different levels, and it's a really good enhancement to go along with the fire safety trailer that we have. So, and it's a good outreach item for the community. The equipment itself is approximately $10,400. And then Joe is requesting also that we ask for educational materials and training materials to go along with it. And so the application itself will not exceed $15,000, which is well within the parameters of this program. So, are we ready, Joe?
I hope so. Yeah, this is the Bullocks live fire training intelligence system. And this is, if I can get it to come up there on the screen, which I don't know if I can. Where's my IT guy? This is a video, Gary.
There you go, bud.
Which one? Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Okay, now it came up with.
Go ahead.
What's that?
Use
I'm going to
the
let you
wheel
do it.
and mouse. Is it
There
this
it
one
is.
or that one?
The bottom. Try the bottom and see what.
Those are photos, I think.
Now, then the top one's the video.
Okay.
There you go.
Here we go.
Bullocks is proud to present the Intelligent Training System. The Intelligent Training System, or ITS, is an innovative solution for your fire extinguisher training needs. ITS uses clean, low-cost training extinguishers that operate using water and compressed air instead of dry chemical or CO2. The user experiences the feel of a real extinguisher without all the mess. Here's how it works. Running off a standard propane tank, the flames are controlled electronically. Using patented smart technology, ITS can actually sense what the trainee is doing. ITS detects where the extinguisher is being pointed and determines if the trainee is performing the proper sweeping motion. If done correctly, ITS automatically turns down the flames. Discharging only air and water, the training extinguisher eliminates the need to discharge and recharge costly dry chemical or CO2 extinguishers, resulting in a substantial cost savings. Because there is no limit to how many times the training extinguisher can be charged in the field, hundreds of trainees can be trained in a single day for little more than the cost of propane. The handheld controller is used to select the class of fire to simulate, as well as the difficulty of the fire. Class A, B, or C fires can be simulated, and each has 4 difficulty levels. Once the class of fire and difficulty level have been set, the instructor presses the ignition button, and then it's up to the trainee to actually extinguish the flames. The fire goes out when the trainee uses the proper sweeping technique. If the trainee is unsuccessful, the fire can be extinguished by releasing the ignition button. The flare-up button can be used to instantly reignite the flames at any point to further challenge trainees. The display on the controller shows the status of the system and how long the trainee took to put out the fire, or if the fire has even been extinguished. For more robust training scenarios, the ITS Extreme training system can be used with Bullocks smart props. Class A, B, and C stainless steel training props can be added to create realistic flame patterns which respond directly to the trainee's actions. Users need to demonstrate the proper technique based on the class of fire they are fighting to successfully extinguish the flames. Available props include a Class A trash can prop, Class B stovetop prop, and a Class C motor prop. Safety features include an emergency shutoff switch and sensors that automatically shut off the propane if the system is bumped or set up improperly, and a buzzer that sounds before ignition. These features all give Bullocks' live fire extinguisher training systems a greater advantage over traditional live burn systems, And because of their portability, they are great for those who train in multiple locations. They can even be shipped from site to site. The convenient design and low cost, combined with advanced safety features, make Bullocks' live fire training systems perfect for training solutions. Bullocks, the new standard in fire extinguisher training. Contact us for more information and find out why thousands of organizations worldwide are using Bullocks fire training systems.
Awesome. So do you have any questions, or Joe, you want to share anything more?
I'll do several fire extinguisher classes every year, and I do them out at Fire Station 2 with actually live fire. And I have a local fire extinguisher supplier here in town gives me his old stuff to use, but it's messy, and every time we do a class, the wind's blowing. And I miss a lot of people because I have requests to bring this stuff to the site, which I can do with this, and especially over around the university. They want me to train a lot of people, but I can't get them all over to Fire Station 2 to do this. So I think it's a very useful prop and educational, and so that's why I'd like to get what we're looking at there.
This,
Go ahead, Dan.
is this something you could set up out there at the New Bill Safety Fair and even downtown during homecoming, or is?
Well, you could, yeah. I mean, if you can keep the youngsters away from the fire. But I mean, the last time I was at a safety fair that Coeur d'Alene had, Coeur d'Alene Fire Department, they were using it the same way. So sure.
Cool. I mean, give more exposure to it.
Exactly. And a lot of people have never even used a fire extinguisher. So, I mean, it's great training. It's like CPR. The one time you have to have it, you need it. And that's the same way with the fire extinguishers. So, and the cost is minimal I mean, you pour water in those fire extinguishers and put some air to it, and the kit comes with an air compressor and everything you need. So.
You getting all three of those props?
Yeah, if you get the extreme, there's a couple of systems. There's a base system that's less money, but I can give you, if you're interested, this is what comes with the, comes with the extreme system.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Personally, the more people know about putting out their own fire, the less it puts our firefighters at risk. The fires don't get out of hand maybe as much. And
well, I've experienced that too. We had a fire in some apartments a grease fire that some young ladies pulled the lid off of some chicken or something they were frying, and it got going pretty bad, and they knew where the fire extinguisher was at and went out into the hallway, got it, put the fire out before the sprinkler system went off. And I invited them to become volunteers, but they didn't come back. It's surprising how many people don't know how to use them. So, sure.
I say we go ahead and put it on consent.
I would agree with that. John?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
All right. Thank you so much for the presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We're now down in the reports section of the agenda, and Kathleen Burns and Daniel Stewart are going to talk about the farmers market opening.
Yep.
Which is set to come up this week or next weekend.
7th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Got to
money.
get this one out of there. So
You only have to train one person to keep their house from getting torched up to the roof and putting a bunch of guys in danger.
Don't forget you'll need the mouse.
just come back and jump it.
We can get something for $10,000. It's usually a pretty good deal.
Yeah, that we don't have to pay for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Kathleen.
Good afternoon,
Daniel?
Jim.
Good afternoon.
So I'm here to introduce our new market manager, Daniel Stewart.
Hi, pleasure to meet you all.
He's been pretty busy. He's actually hit the ground running. So last week, we had our season vendor meeting, and we had about 80 people in this room going through things with the tax commission and the fire department. Joe was here to explain safety. The tax commission was here. Nancy Becker was here from the health department. Nursery from Department of Ag. So we've been pretty busy. And tomorrow this room will be filled with walk-on vendors that will be getting all the information they need to vend in the market. So this is your poster this year for 2016. And it had 314 votes, and the other poster, which was the pickle, had 285. So this was the people's choice. And this is Heather Nicolai, who developed the Home and Harvest magazine. This is her work. So she'll...
When do you get to do these? They're always so good.
Well, she's a graphic artist, and she'll be at the market on May 7th signing copies of these. And we've had requests from VFW is having a convention here this summer, and the Elks or somebody else is American Legion. So we're having extra copies made for bags and stuff for different events in town. So we're going to be printing 1,000 of these, and by the end of the summer we might have 2 left. So
Probably don't want my
You're drawing, John?
yeah.
No.
Probably don't need my input.
Well, you can give input, but that's the poster. That's where we're going. So I just wanted to bring you up to speed what we've got planned. So you have 26 market days. It starts May 7th and ends October 29th. And we don't close the market, so we're getting ready to open the market, and there's a lot going on. So we only have 5 open dates left for non-paid performances that we're working on. Contracts coming back. Non-paid. Yeah, Jim tried. So we have commissions coming to the market, fair and affordable housing, historic, human rights, Latah County Human Rights Task Force, the Arts Commission, Pathways, Sustainable Environment, Tree Commission. Also, the Moscow Farmers Market Commission will be engaged in the market. We have 6 kids cooking days and 6 kids fruit and veggie tasting days scheduled, 6 smoothie days scheduled. And then we have chef days scheduled in the market, and we are partnering with the Pea and Lentil Commission because this is your year of the Pulse products. So we'll be featuring Pulse products at the market and various chefs from different restaurants cooking at the market. May 14th is the International Migratory Bird Day. June 4th is Idaho at Play, and that'll be put together with Jessica, our AmeriCorps, and also Adam Lane, our AmeriCorps. Then on June 18th, we have a sustainability fair, and that's with a whole bunch of different organizations in the community. The U of I Extension has signed up for these dates for their workshops at the market, and then we also have an Apple Fest on October 15th. So with that, I'm going to show you Zach's video that went live on Facebook on Friday and let you enjoy. So yay, Zach.
Good job, Zach.
Yeah, and just to let you know, the video went out on Friday and to date, And to time, 4,505 people have seen that video. So that's pretty good stats off of the Facebook page. So
People excited about the market early. That's good.
I think they're getting ready. So do you have questions for us? You should throw something at us, or throw something at Daniel.
Let Jim play.
I would love to have Jim play.
Rod won't let me play or sell. So I blame him.
Okay.
I think that every year, the Farmers Market Commission and the people that work with it, both the paid staff and the volunteer staff, outdo themselves from what they did a year ago. And I think it's great that they are making something happen just through the dint of their own efforts. It's pretty impressive.
Well, thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Fun.
Yeah.
He's going to need it.
Your troubles are just beginning.
No, they also.
The next report we have is from Gary Riedner about the PEP program, Partnership for Economic Prosperity. He's going to tell us what's going to happen there.
Thank you. I have our two other incorporators here, Paul Kimmel and Gina Teruscio.
Hello, gentlemen.
Council members.
Don't want you guys to get nervous now.
Okay, well, then I'm going to sit back.
Who's the president?
It had to be somebody.
There, I think I got
name
it.
Begins with P.
Yeah.
Paul's Partnership for Economic Prosperity.
Yeah, Paul's pet project.
Paul the pooper.
Okay, thank you for your indulgence. You have before you a list of deliverables. I'll give you a little history on our organization. As indicated, there are three incorporators, Gina, Paul, and myself, who signed the paperwork to get the corporation started. This is based on a presentation and a proposal that we put before the city, the county, the university, the Chamber of Commerce within the past year, and was budgeted for in last year's budget. Since that time, we've had an organizational meeting. Might as well get to the slide that shows us that. We'll go back here. Okay, well, we'll start with this. First of all, the purpose of the organization, you can read it. I won't read it to you, but the idea is to have a systematic approach to economic development. All of the organizations are not giving up their right to go out and seek economic development. In fact, it will take the partnership. Each of us will put our own efforts forward, and the organization, PEP, will serve to coordinate all of those efforts so that we have a more county-wide approach. One of the things I'm particularly excited about in this is it's the first time we've reached out to the other cities in Latah County, other than the city of Moscow. Although under the old Latah Economic Development Council, there were services provided to those cities, that was an effort that wasn't always, I think, either appreciated or taken advantage of. So hopefully, with having each of these cities involved will help us to get that sort of buy-in. So we set it up as a 501c6, which is a nonprofit corporation under the IRS regulations. And what you see in front of you up here is the different participations. The City of Moscow committed to $40,000 in the FY 2016 budget. The Chamber of Commerce is $5,000 along with office space and office support. So the location of this, we'll talk about an executive director here in a minute, but the office of the organization will be had downtown in the heart of the business district at the Chamber of Commerce. Latah County has also committed to $40,000 for this year, as has the University of Idaho. We have the small cities, the Latah County incorporated cities other than Moscow. We're hoping to have, at least the bylaws are set up, for a $500 contribution each, and then they will vote on who their representative to the Board of Directors will be. There's 2 at-large positions available. There is a $5,000 annual fee or membership dues for that. What we're trying to do is to get people who have skin in the game and are committed to economic development in Latah County. So we anticipate 2 at-large positions on the board for that as well. There'll also be 1 ex officio member representing the Idaho Department of Commerce. So it's a 7-member board with 1 ex officio member. Okay, we have a who's going to be running the place. We've got, of course, the board of directors. Then we have the executive director, who we'll talk about in a few moments, and how that's going to be funded. And I won't read all of these, but suffice it to say that the goals and deliverables, services and deliverables that I've laid out in front of you are what PEP will be delivering to the city of Moscow. Latah County is getting a similar set. Chamber of Commerce and University of Idaho will also have similar deliverables as well. The idea is, again, to coordinate those economic development efforts. So if you look at the deliverables, which is something that has been a little bit, I guess, nebulous in the past, we've set some pretty high goals and some pretty aggressive timelines. One is that once the executive director is hired, they'll be charged to put together a comprehensive assessment of our local economy within 4 months of being hired. So after a short time for them to get started, they'll be looking at the resources. And a lot of this information has already been gathered and collated, so they'll have access to that. But what we want to do is, rather than the complaint we hear about economic development, is that, God, it moves so slow, you never know what's being done, or contacts being made, what's the last business that opened here because of the efforts of an economic developer, so on and so forth. So we felt that to have a fairly aggressive timeline and actually deliver something to the partners was going to be the best way to build that confidence in the system. So within 4 months, they will move ahead with that assessment of the economy. Then they'll develop a strategy based upon that assessment for presentation to the board and ultimately to the individual partners. So what we're trying to do is look at things that in this area, what do we have that makes us a good place for a business to either expand or develop. Also, retainage of existing businesses is also something that we'll be focusing on. They will come in, they will maintain a business's services portfolio so that someone who comes in wants to start a business, expand a business, or is struggling perhaps and wants to figure out a way to maintain their business, they come in and this will be a focal point for that business, to be able to talk to someone and say, okay, these are things that are available to you. They may be resources at the University of Idaho, the SBA, CETA, a lot of different things, the city, chamber, so on and so forth. So the idea is to provide that service to businesses in the community. Retention, development, expansion, recruitment, including internal and external marketing. The Chamber does a good job of marketing the area. We have not engaged in a comprehensive marketing campaign for economic development specifically. LEDC did some work in that area, both with the Idaho alumni in their magazine and some of the, I believe was the Horizon magazine. So there have been some efforts made, but we intend to expand those efforts as well. There will be monthly reports to city administration and quarterly reports to the council. So this is something we're expecting that you will see before you at least 4 times a year in preparation for the budget and to see what is going on. Let's see. Be coordinating with our grants department. If there are grants out there that we ought to be pursuing, such as the EDA grant and the Community Development Block Grant that were utilized by the city and LEDC, the university, and the Chamber of Commerce on the North Idaho Business Technology Incubator, formerly on Sweet Avenue. Some of those opportunities may be available. We want to identify those. Lastly, participation or support of the goals of the Moscow Urban Renewal Agency. Of course, those plans that the Urban Renewal Agency pursues are approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission and adopted by the City Council. So by extension, we also want that economic development support for those plans as well. So that's a short list of the things that will be delivered at the beginning. It's not a static list. It's going to be developing over time. If there are things that we need to work on, we have every intention of doing so. One of the things that we want to do, and you guys can chime in anytime you want, but we're trying to have regular meetings, probably semi-monthly meetings at the beginning, so that the executive director has a good chance at finding out what is expected of him or her and to move ahead in that way. So we're hoping that on-the-ground contact with our organizations will help a lot. Okay, what have we done so far? First thing we did last year is we got commitments from our partners. As on the first slide, I explained exactly what those partners have indicated they will do. I've verified with all of the partners that they have their funds in the current fiscal year. They've just been waiting for the request. So this is the request. We've set up the articles of incorporation and bylaws. I have copies of those if the council would like to see those. We've had our initial organizational meeting. Susan Wilson, a local attorney, is giving free legal advice, which is really nice. She's made these filings, assisted us with the preparation of the documents, and has filed the 501c6 tax-exempt application, so we expect to see that pretty soon. We've developed an organizational budget, which I can provide for you. I can put it on the screen if you like. It looks very similar to the city budget, amazingly enough, but one of the things that we've got is we have some seed money coming over from the dissolution of the Latah Economic Development Council, so we have that to start with. With the funding that we have from all the individual partners, we have sufficient funds to do what needs to be done. The first is to hire an executive director. We've asked all of our organizations, although we know that you can't commit outside the budget year, we've asked all of our partners to commit, at least in theory or in spirit, to a 3-year shot. So what we'd like is 3 years from the time we launch to continue and be able to show you the value of the organization. It'll take that long to really get our feet on the ground and get moving, but we also understand that it's very easy just to get someone in place and they just exist from year to year and month to month without a lot of results. So it's supposed to be, or it's meant to be, a very results-based organization. You may not see a new business every month or even every 6 months, but what you will see is regular reports on the efforts being made and feedback as to what you think will or won't work. We've developed a job description for the executive director. We've tried to make it as competitive as possible. We want to be competitive. We put together what we believe is a good package, and once we have our initial presentations, which is the next bullet point, we presented to the Chamber of Commerce. We'll present to you today and a short presentation to the City Council on the 2nd. We're pending a presentation in front of the Latah County Commissioners and the University of Idaho. Once those are done and we get those funds in support of the organization, we will then feel comfortable with proceeding to advertise for the executive director position. So with that, I'll turn it over to our president and the rest of the board for comment.
Go, Paul.
Council members, thank you again for this opportunity today. I think what you see before you is a really a powerful demonstration of a collective will to collaborate on economic development. And you know, I chair a lot of economic development activity around the region through my company, Avista, specifically the Inland Northwest Economic Alliance, where we work with large economic development organizations like Greater Spokane, Inc., down to small single-person organizations like Silver Valley and Bonner and Adams County and stuff. What you see, where you see success is in both, but where you always see success is when you collaborate and partner. And for far too long, as we had to bifurcate our economic development activities, I had to use a new word this week. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. As we had to split up those, we had to kind of take our marbles in different places when we lost the incubator management. And what resulted was just a lot of inefficiencies, and especially around economic development. The county tried to do it. We could only afford a half-time person. The city tried to do it with a half-time person to a little more success. But, it was silly. And because of the efforts of the city and the university mostly, and I will say the community-university strategic partnership was really a great indicator to me that the time was ripe to bring all of the players back together and get serious about it. Economic development is always, there always should be a sense of urgency, not complacency, and I think we sort of get lulled into that kind of that creative loafing sort of thing where it's a great community and we're all good and happy, but economic development can't behave that way. We have to press on, and I think what this gives us is enough resources and collective will and focus to do exactly that. So I'm obviously excited, and it's not because there's a lot of P's in the title and my hat, but that helps.
Oh, you believe just a little bit of that. He likes the piece. I would like to point out that for my organization, predominantly our services have been for existing business forward. Very seldom has it been for the pre-business or the people that are coming up with a good idea, that sort of thing. And this partnership is really an exciting time for the Chamber of Commerce in that we are, for the first time in our organization's history, putting money towards economic development. And I really am excited about not only the member recruitment aspect of this, but then also the fact that we can be at the same table and get a lot accomplished for our community. So pretty excited about that.
And much of the work won't necessarily be out recruiting in Southern California or somewhere else. It will be just trying to grow the businesses that are already here and making them more successful. And, that's really where the lion's share of work needs to happen. We need to help these existing businesses, and I think you'll see that.
If I may, one of the things, too, with LEDC, I think even with our own efforts for economic development, as Paul indicated, when we're out by ourselves, we have a limited amount of funding. And even together, we're going to have a limited amount of funding. But I think we focused more on what the person would cost and not the other things that we needed, such as if you're going to economically develop, you need to go out and you need to meet people. You need to have a budget for that. We have in our budget, in our preliminary budget, we've developed it such that there is funding there for trips. There is funding for contacts and those sorts of things. We want this person to go out and meet people. We want this person to be able to travel somewhere and meet prospects. So that's the idea, and we think that given the 3-year term, we'll be able to deliver some product to the community.
Thank you. I very much like the piece of this that is involved in accountability, where you're going to report back what are we doing from time to time, so that everyone can see that there's something being done. We just didn't set this up and someone sits in an office and collects money and doesn't. Well, I couldn't get anybody to start a business here. Sorry. I think the approach here is more proactive to have some accountability for the efforts that are put out and the money that's spent. So,
one other thing, if I could, the really exciting part too is where we will all celebrate success, whether it happens here in Moscow or somewhere out in Latah County, for instance, Potlatch, that's working really hard to develop their industrial park out there. And this helps bring some resources to that. And, again, the multiple effects, the ripple effects, we'll celebrate the good things that happen out there, and they will celebrate the things that happen in Moscow because we are a regional economy. And I think you'll find that out right out of the start when you see that regional economic assessment.
We're looking forward to seeing that. And anything you want to bring to that?
I guess it's good that we're getting buy-in from the other towns in the county, incorporated communities, and I think that was the problem with the LEDC is the board just got so huge because anybody could be a member. It seemed like there for a while, and then how do you finally get it was just coming to a decision seemed like it was the hardest thing there. So hopefully we can keep this more streamlined and actually, make the things happen instead of, just discussing them till everybody gets tired of discussing them and then nothing happens.
It's a great observation, Councilman.
I think also that with the people that are involved, it is not going to be easy, but it is doable. And having people that are willing to commit some time, some money, some effort, you don't know what you can end up with. But if you just kind of say, well, we tried last year, but nothing happened, it's not going to work very well. No. But saying we tried last year, and these are the things we did well, these are the things we didn't do well. And we're going to try to focus on the things we did well and then forget about or change the things we didn't do well. So,
Gary?
Next Monday, I'll be giving a report and officially kicking this off, and hopefully we'll have our other presentations scheduled. I would note that the participation of small cities, or the LCIC, Latah County Incorporated Cities, will likely take place later on after we hire an executive director. It's fairly time intensive thing. We have to visit all of those places and all the different council meetings, and that will take a little more organization and time than 3 volunteers have at this point. So we'll move that ahead as quickly as we can.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're going to have Alyssa Anderson talk about the Tiger Grant that we're working on, which could be a huge thing for the city of Moscow if we can make that happen. And I know there's a lot at Les, and everybody's putting in a lot of efforts to get this grant application in. So what's going on today?
Okay. I will introduce the concept. I have a handout I'd like you to take a look at. This is as you know, this has taken a great amount of effort on Elisa's part, Les's part, and different staff members throughout the city. Less than 30 days ago, we started looking at the Tiger Grant and potential projects that may have fit into that. Because it's a change of presidential administrations this year, there is an effort to identify projects, get them vetted, award the monies, and get the projects off the ground. So we've looked at this. As you know, the project extends from Mountain View Park all the way to Highway 8. It's a fairly big project. If you look at the budget, you'll see that it's a big number project as well. Elisa will run us through the numbers a little bit. We've worked this from as many angles as we can. We've looked at the LTAC funding that we have at this point for the Mountain View project, which is from 6th Street to White Avenue, I believe. Joseph to White Avenue, which was, as you know, the funds that LTAC had assessed or assigned to that project have been transferred to the A Street project, while the Mountain View project is back in project planning. Still in the program, but funding will be a little later. So we've taken that. We've taken the different projects that have occurred along that corridor. This project includes everything, as I've said, from Mountain View Park all the way to Highway 8. We've looked at the water and sewer improvements that will be necessary for this project, and we've also looked at participation from what would be the street fund and commensurate funding from the general fund. So we've looked at all those sorts of things, and Elisa will talk a little bit about that. Les can answer any technical questions that you might have. I will note that this is due this week. It's, like I said, a huge project to pull together in that short a period of time. However, I think staff has done a really good job of doing so. So with that, I will be quiet and let Elisa talk about what you have before you, which is the result of a lot of hours of trying to consider what could be done here.
Okay. So I'll just kind of go over with you the budget, and then I'll let Les go into a little more detail about how he was able to pull together all the revenue funding sources for this. So as I did my research, I found that projects that had some phases near completion, already complete, or to complete within the next 2 to 3 years were being brought together as a larger corridor project. And the focus this year for Tiger is more of a surface transportation funding. The last couple of years, it's been more about public transit and rail and air. And so, you know, I felt like if we pulled all the work we needed to do in this entire corridor, starting with a traffic light at Highway 8 and going all the way past the park, which incorporates some of the county and the highway district properties, and bringing all the elements together where we have work being done on D Street this summer, we have a bus shelter being put in, and so within this budget, in the first column, you'll see under the funding source for the Tiger funds, we're looking at really 4 main sections that we're asking money for: Highway 8 to White Avenue, White Avenue to Joseph Street, and then 6th Street to Mountain View Park, and then bridges at 6th Street and 3rd Street. And those numbers basically come to a total of $17,618,275, and that's
Millions.
or million, excuse me. Yeah.
I think we can fund the 17,000.
Yeah, got that one.
I have so many numbers in my head I can't even tell you, which is approximately 73% of the project. And that's still a pretty big ask for this program, but we've massaged these numbers and done the best we could. We had some good results from our consultant who we've hired to help us with the benefit cost analysis, and he got us to a 1-to-1 benefit cost ratio with all the data we've provided with accidents and M&O expenses and the improvements that you make with having roundabouts and new bridges and improvements with bike lanes and sidewalks. And so there's a lot of different ratios he's running for us, and he feels that we've gotten to a point where we can be competitive with this application. Under the second category, under other federal, we have the money that Gary just referred to as the LTAC project. And then also we have the $500,000 for the D Street project, the community choices that's happening this summer. And then we have a bus shelter area that's going to be put in by Egan. And that's the amount of funding that includes the bus shelter and the installation. And then also the pass system that was put in front of the new ball fields complex. And that's the total there. If we look at local applicant city, there's a couple of different colors you see in your category. And new money is what is in orange, and that's $2,804,364. And that includes the same sections that we discussed above under the Tiger funding, in addition to our match for the section of Joseph to 6th Street, which has partial funding from LTAC in it. Down below in the lighter color, those are actually monies that we've already paid or have set aside to finish up projects. The school district and the city both participated in the PATH system. $40,000 is our match to our existing D Street Community Choices project. Les had already budgeted for D Street grind and inlay and the water line. And then down below, we have a 5339 grant for the bicycle network improvements. And then at the very bottom, the city had already budgeted to do upgrades, ADA compliance upgrades and sidewalks, and I think the whole area out in front of Egan will be replaced as part of the project too. And so you can see the two totals. We have the new money and or the paid and budgeted funds in those two categories there. So that brings the city's total match to $3,031,534, of which, as I said, some is new money and some is money that we've already budgeted. The school district in the local district category in pink is their half of the PATH system that was already installed in front of the ball fields. And then they're also upgrading their parking lot at the school or at the Moscow Middle School, which is part of the D Street project, Community Choices. And right now, under local city highway, Dan has a meeting on Thursday, and we'll know a little bit better.
Or Wednesday.
Wednesday, I mean. If they can provide some rock or some other in-kind match to that project that we'll include in the budget, but it would basically move costs from construction over to this category, so it wouldn't really change the overall budget. We also have, under Idaho Transportation Department, would be half of what it would cost to put the traffic light in at Highway 8, and that's $164,450. So as you see in the last column, with all of the current projects underway and the proposed new elements, we're at $24,161,130,000. And I know that's a huge number, and it's been a lot of manipulation and budgeting. Les has been very instrumental. I kind of put together the elements, and he helped bring it all together and bring it to life. Down below, there's a summary of the funding sources that you can see with the total percentages based upon the categories that we'll present in the application, how they want to see them funded, which is the local match, and then other federal, and then the Tiger request.
So, and maybe I'm asking the question that you're going to tell me. The items in the greenish below the orange, that there we've already paid or budgeted. That's money that's already
the 227
committed.
Figure.
Yes.
Yeah, 227,000. We've already got that. So that's hard money going towards a match right now, or that we can put towards a match towards this whole thing.
Right. I mean, part of the concept here is looking at the entire corridor.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll note the name of this at the top, East Moscow Multimodal Infrastructure Partnership. It's not just Mountain View improvement, right? And the intent here was to look at the entire area, and this is a common practice within the Tiger Grant applications that we were seeing, so that you can assess, okay, what are the impacts of this standalone project and how it fits in within the entire area or corridor that you're considering improvements. And so that's why you see these other aspects and other projects for multimodal improvements in that part of town, that East Moscow area. So some of those projects are underway now, or some of them have actually been completed, or some of them will be starting shortly. So it's a combination of all of those. Obviously, the Tiger Grant would be even a little bit further out in the overall scheme. The percentages you see across the bottom are based on the cost of all of those projects. As you point out, some of those, that 227,000 figure represents funds that have been provided through the city that have already been either expended or currently being expended or in our budgets today.
So the 47,000, that was it last summer's water line project on D Street?
That's correct.
And so they'll let you go back that far to bring it into the match?
Well, we don't, as a rural community, we're not required to put match into the project, but you can go back and show improvements that you've done over the last year or two, and show that you're improving the corridor as a whole. This whole entire corridor project.
And that particular project is part of a larger project, which is the whole D Street and the parking lots within the Moscow Middle School, and that whole concept with community choices. So it all fits in here together as part of the corridor improvements.
Cool.
Just one other thing I wanted to share before we got too far. The construction costs that you see in the Tiger funding elements had to be inflated for a year of 2022. So those are much higher numbers. I think we did a 4% increase.
Annually? 4% annually.
Yes. So those numbers are higher than we would be looking at right now. And also, one of the things, too, is that we have until 2019 to obligate the money. And if you see at the top of the spreadsheet, this includes our match, the money we're putting in advance, would include right-of-way, environmental, and 50% of the design costs. So that's where we're focused on putting our money in. And then the Tiger money would mainly go to the construction costs and 50% of the match. And that was really what we had to do, or the design, to be able to get it so that we could be competitive and still meet the guidelines of the timelines that they've established. So when I looked at all these other projects, and according to the guidelines, you really need to have your right-of-way and your environmental completed before you can obligate the funding. They're going to notify people this, they say end of summer, so I would say September probably.
So we'll have to buy right-of-way this summer?
I'm following through with that right now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Just-
they'll let us know by the end of summer if we're awarded. So we'll have between the announcement of the award and June of 2019 to complete our environmental and right-of-way and 50% of our design activities.
Not the design, just the first two. So the right-of-way and the
Excuse me.
environmental would be what we would call maybe a pre-design phase, so that we would get those done and we'd be utilizing local funds to do that. Once we obligate, then the grant money would become available after probably September of 2019. At that point, we would go into design with 50% funded through the grant, 50% funded using local funds. And then the construction would be going on from there with grant funding. So the package we've put together, it's been an interesting endeavor to sort out how we could make this work with cash flow, funding that's available, how much local match we can provide, how we leverage perhaps some of the utility funding that's available versus street funding, which is a little more scarce, as well as general funding. What we've come up with is a package that essentially will fund fully the utility components using enterprise funds. So any type of environmental work, design, construction would be fully funded from the individual enterprise funds, water and sewer in particular. In addition to that, there's about $900,000 or so that would be street fund, general fund, origin money that would make up the rest of our match towards this $17 million grant. So we looked at a number of scenarios, anything from having the grant fund all the design and we just fund the environmental right-of-way portion, to including the design into the city's local match components. We settled on this option in between with a 50% split on the design costs, and it seems to work well with the overall funding stream and package that we have available here for local money.
If we don't get this grant, then we still have the option to remanipulate these funds. We don't have to commit them to the design and environmental thing if we don't get the grant, right? We can pursue another grant or go another way, and as soon as we know it's awarded, then we would proceed with that.
Yeah, we wouldn't really expend funds other than what we've done to date with the consultant on the application. We wouldn't expend, don't anticipate any further funds on this until we know about the award. There's really no reason to go forward with environmental, for instance, if we don't have a project. And so starting in the schedule we're laying out right now anticipates starting October of this year, which would be after we would hear about the award, with the beginning of that work. And then October essentially through spring of 2019, so we can obligate by the June 2019 date. So what we've done is we've earmarked those funds within the budget, and you will see them in the budget proposal that will be coming forward to council later this spring. So there are specific line items in street and water and sewer, particularly water and sewer capital, that spell out, okay, here are funds that are being earmarked towards this effort and this project. Obviously, if the funding doesn't, or the grant does not come through, then they remain in the pool and they'll get reallocated, as is appropriate.
Would you think that the environmental portion of this should be fairly straightforward since it's an existing right-of-way?
Well, consider the bridges as well. So the road work itself is probably a fairly straightforward, as you indicate. It's a widening of existing road system. As we've gone through that with current, previous projects, it's a fairly easy environmental aspect. As soon as you start looking at adding crossings of the creek, then that adds some complications. The designs that we would envision are not the kind that would have any real significant impacts or any lasting impacts on the creek. It's just more of how do you address construction and design such that you don't have an impact on environmental and makes the permitting easier. So, these are not terribly challenging environmental issues, but they are, a process we have to go through.
Just in new 312 funding, that's, even being conservative, you're probably looking at an extra $200,000 a year from before. So, and that's really, that's shooting low, I think, if you're shooting at $50,000 a quarter. So there, or at least could hopefully bank some stuff up to get it going once we know, and hopefully we'll know before, we get official on the budget.
Gary?
Yeah, if I may, and Dan's exactly right. We do anticipate some additional revenues. However, we also have a clear mandate from the council in our major challenge areas that we need to improve pavement conditions in the city. Right. This will have an impact on the pavement maintenance budget, quite likely. So we're balancing the need to reconstruct an important corridor with the maintenance issues, and Les and his people have been working back and forth, and we're asking all the hard questions. So there will be some impacts. But an opportunity like this doesn't come by very often. It's a chance to at least take a swing for the fence and determine whether or not we've got what it takes.
And it's one of the big maintenance issues too.
It's huge.
It is. That corridor. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's been really the goal in the city, I think, to improve that corridor for a long time. And, we've slowly been chipping away at it as funding becomes available. It's an area that is seeing, tremendous growth in vehicular travel and other uses.
What Gressback call it last week? The
recreation
corridor,
which is not our official designation.
Oh, it's a busy area.
If we were to be awarded, there'll be a lot of work to do, and it'll be 2019 before we know it. And then from that obligation point, there's still a lot of groundwork to cover. Construction will be scheduled in 2022 and 23.
Probably in that
Some
range.
of it finishing up in 24. So it might be the next, here we are, 2016. It'll be halfway to my retirement when I'm done, is how I'm looking at it.
Every journey starts with a single step. That's
right.
So
I need an elephant.
Yeah, I feel like it's competitive. I have a good feeling about it. They may not fund all of it. They may say, this is as much as we can give you, and we'd have to make decisions on components that we would be able to pull back on. And I also feel too that if we aren't awarded, they say try again. So I guess the political arena will determine if this would be something we could resubmit next year. And, we'll just see how it goes. So,
if we get private partnerships in this as well, looking down the road, is that something that adds, dangles a little more carrot to the award?
Anytime you can decrease your request to the Tiger amount and have a larger other collaborative contribution, the stronger the application. But with the time frames, we just didn't really have the ability to do that. Yeah.
I would note as well that we've had really success in these collaborative endeavors, the ITC being a great example of that, the Brownfields grant being another. So even though we don't have someone else signing on the bottom line with us, we have support letters, as you know, from our governmental and institutional partners. It's a great opportunity, so we'll see where it goes. Yeah, and as Elisa constantly tells me, there is no match required for this grant. But if we can get the federal government's participation down as low as it can be, it's a lot easier for them to go ahead and claim success of these programs, and we have to just give more on the local side. We've tried to stretch that as much as we can. That's been a huge piece of what we've been doing for the last 3 weeks. So we think it's competitive. It'll be up to the folks who review it to determine whether we were successful.
All of the other applications, everyone else would be submitting an application is on the same timeline as we have. In other words, they have to pull all their ducks together in a row in the same time frame, so we're not at a disadvantage in that regard, are we?
I just wanted to add, too, that Kirsten and Jen have been assisting with letter writing and getting letters of support, and we were really excited when we got a letter that was signed by all 5 of our Congress and House of Rep members supporting the project. So that's a huge item to have in there. And so we're really lucky to have that letter, and it'll really add to the support of the project.
Excellent. So what's the date again when this is submitted? When you have to have it on someone else's
I really
desk?
wanted to submit it Wednesday, but I think it's looking more like Thursday afternoon at this point. Friday at 5 o'clock is the deadline, but I don't want to put myself there. So
To Lewiston?
No, it's a grants.gov submittal, And so I've had a bad experience with that, and I won't have another one by waiting too long. So if you see a light on here Thursday night in the middle of the night, don't worry, it'll be me and a couple of others probably here. So, but no, we're in good shape right now. All the components are coming together. Les, Bill, Kevin, Scott, everyone's been pulling in and providing support and helping me write the narrative, and so I think we're in really good shape.
Excellent. Nice presentation.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent spreadsheet. Very easy to understand.
And I would
job.
like to recollect those because I'm not exactly sure this is where we're
We'll
going
have
to
the
be.
finals out.
Yeah. We'll provide a copy of the application when we complete it.
We're adjourned, sir.
Thank you.
That's the last item on our agenda, so entertaining a motion to adjourn.
We're entertained all over the place.
Yes.
Consider us adjourned.